Florida leaders say that they are ending all childhood vaccine mandates. For decades, public schools in the state have required vaccines for diseases like measles and polio, unless a child has an exemption.
Governor Ron DeSantis says he will work with the state legislature to roll back requirements and will then create a commission to make recommendations on vaccines. Health experts, though, worry that a downward trend in vaccinations will lead to more disease, especially in classrooms.
Joining us now, our chief analyst, Khalif Rhodes. Khalif, trying to do research on this. There's no guideline saying that you don't have to enforce vaccines. In fact, they are saying that they back you up if you do enforce vaccines, but nothing saying they can just say you don't have to take a vaccine, right?
Well, it's a mixed bag. I guess the first question is, do the states have authority to enforce or require or roll back vaccine mandates? And it would be straight within the state's authority to do it. There's clear case law. Jacobson versus Massachusetts, 1905. Supreme Court upheld states' power to enforce vaccine mandates with smallpox. It's pretty clear under the 10th Amendment as well that states control public health within their borders. And so I think there is in terms of the constitutionality and the legality of it, the states are within their ability to do that. There are a number of things, I should say, provisions put in place for like military, for folks that are serving in positions where Congress, the federal government, has put in restrictions that they're required to do something. So then you'd have the supremacy clause that would say the state can't have something that tries to supersede federal government requirements. But those would be outliers. But for everyday citizens that are living in the state of Florida, the folks that are elected there, the people that are put into place, they're within their authority to do that. And obviously they are moving forward with doing this.
You're not a medical doctor, so I'm not going to ask you the medical implications if this were to happen in Florida and then, spread around the country. But legally, what are the implications if the mandates are rolled back, and then if this does become, I guess, contagious, if you will, across this country?
I mean, you could say that a person would have to have standing by getting one of these illnesses that a vaccine could have prevented, and then you bring that case before the court, and then the standard would be you knew or should have known, state of Florida, that an individual could have contracted this disease that was preventable. I think it subjects them to endless litigation by doing something like this, but anticipated and expected. I'll let Annie ask me this, and I can kind of hit on why I thought it was going this way.
Well, so, I mean, lawsuits that you see.
I mean, for sure, the lawsuits are going to be based on the harm that this is committed. We saw what happened in Texas, that outbreak right there, and that wasn't anything that was pushed by the state or by any local jurisdiction. That was by just not following the guidelines and following recommendations that were put forth by Kennedy. But with this individual down here, Lapido, the Surgeon General in the state of Florida, he says yesterday, "Who am I to tell you what you should put in your body?" That's what he said at the press conference. But then I looked at the definition of what they have for the Surgeon General. Chief medical doctor and health educator. The mission of the Surgeon General is to give the public the best scientific information available on how to improve health and lower risk of injury and disease. In Florida, it says the same thing. The role is to be the state's leading advocate in wellness and disease prevention. So to the question of who am I, you're the Surgeon General. You literally are the person, if anyone, that should be telling people what things can help you prevent these diseases. But I won't end there. How he got his start, and I'm not disparaging him, I'm just looking at the facts. He's a highly educated man, PhD, MD from Harvard. I mean, has went through the gamut of every academic place that you can go to. But he got his start by writing op-ed pieces in the Wall Street Journal. He saw those things during the pandemic. I remember reading his post that he read. I said, man, this guy's saying some really weird out there things, not supported by science, no peer-reviewed information. Governor DeSantis saw that and hired him and appointed him to that position after reading his op-ed points. So that's why I said I anticipated and I expected this, because he's been writing like this since 2019, 2020. So this isn't new for him. He did the same thing with measles in Florida. So this is just the next anticipated logical step that I saw coming if you just looked at the writing that was on the wall.
Would there be standing for a family, okay, if the measles outbreak starts or another outbreak starts, say smallpox, they're not saying you can't take the vaccine, they're just saying it's not mandated, right?
Yeah, but that non-mandated requirement now means that those kids are going to be going to places that won't have the inoculation. And so now your increased ability, or I should say your increase to risk to have, to the disease will be increased, obviously, by if you don't have it and you don't have it and then I have it, now the likelihood of the folks in that room getting it is that what they talk about. And I'm not a scientist, but I've read enough about it to know that you want folks in the room to be inoculated. And so
herd immunity.
Right. So when you start having multiple people in there that aren't, and the numbers start to weigh on the side that they aren't, you're going to have folks that are going to be getting diseases on a record number, and specifically smaller children. And that's where it's going to be problematic. To your overall question, lawsuits will be mounting one after another, but that won't be the end result. When you have damages in these types of claims, these are serious injuries. You're not talking about a broken leg or soft tissue. Most of these injuries that come from this are death. Measles, polio, these were killing people. At record numbers in history, and people forget that. That's why we have vaccines, to prevent the deaths that were coming from these diseases. So I hope that they can give it a second look, but I don't anticipate that occurring. And while they are not mandating it, there will be a push down there to just push it away completely.
All right, so we're going to keep an eye on that one. Obviously making some big news. So, Khalif, thank you so much.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.